Hey dog people, you know I love talking all things muzzle related. Well, I'm so excited to announce that I've partnered with Trust Your Dog, custom dog gear for you and your dog. Trust Your Dog muzzles are completely customizable for your needs and your unique dog. Muzzles are great for a variety of uses, such as allergies, requesting space from triggers, post-op site protection, and of course, bite prevention. Each Trust Your Dog muzzle is expertly fit and handmade, with the choice of bright colors and bling to break down the muzzle stigma. Trust Your Dog's mission is to give humans comfort in knowing their dog is safe, all by empowering humans to trust their dogs. Head on over to trustyourdog.com and use my code FREED10. That's FREED10 for 10% off. Use code FREED10 for 10% off your custom muzzle at trustyourdog.com. Welcome to Dog Training Bytes. The show where canine professionals share their key takeaways, big aha moments, and hardest lessons learned from working with dogs. I'm Mattison, certified dog trainer and behavior consultant, and dogs are my life. Every day I get to coach guardians and other trainers into a deeper understanding of canine behavior. But let's face it, sometimes dog training really bites. And that's okay, because when it does, we learn a lot. This podcast is all about sharing the lessons learned from experience, because the stories of when it got tough or when we made a mistake, that's when we learn the lessons worth learning. And it's time we share those with the world. I'll be talking to dog trainers and other pet professionals about times that working with dogs, well, bit. Not literally. Maybe literally. What's most important here on this show, what did they walk away with? What did they learn? How did it shape their approach today? Welcome to Dog Training Bytes, the show where pet professionals share personal lessons that you won't find in any textbook. Today, I have someone who I just recently connected with over Instagram, Bryndon Golya. Bryndon established his business, OC Canine Coaching, that's CANINE, in 2010. He is a certified dog behavior consultant with the IAABC with over 15 years experience as a professional dog trainer. Bryndon is located in Costa Mesa, California, and he works to help dogs fit into the human world with a holistic approach and rewards-based training. He specializes in tackling difficult cases like aggression and behaviors driven by fear and anxiety with a compassionate approach. Hi, Bryndon. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, like I said, I just discovered your page a couple of months ago, and I just thought your content was a breath of fresh air for me. The way that
Oh,
you approach things, leading
mhm.
with kindness, but also delivering what I think are very reasonable and realistic solutions, sustainable solutions to help people with their dogs. Like I said, just
that
absolute breath of fresh air.
that is a breath of fresh air for me to hear. It's exactly what I was hoping to convey.
Nailed it.
It's not always easy to know what the world is thinking when they're looking at your Instagram page. There's not a whole lot of feedback people give all the time. A little heart isn't exactly a whole lot of information.
Yeah.
But it's nice to hear that I talked to enough people that are saying, "Hey, look, I like the content you're putting out." It's a big change to what I did 2 years ago or even a year ago. I just started really trying to reshape what I put out there the past year and a half. And so far, I think it's done pretty well. So
What has
yeah.
been the biggest shift there in what you're putting out?
I didn't. I took a lesson in social media actually. There's times where my business ebbs and flows, even still, and sometimes I can't get a break. But there's sometimes, and this happened about a year and a half ago for some reason. I don't know why, and I think it happened to a lot of dog trainers. What I heard is that there's just this downturn of we weren't sure what. I'm sure it's not consistent with everybody, but business just slowed down for some reason without any reason that I could put, and I didn't figure it out, and it came back. But in that time, I figured I need to figure out something to do that's constructive, that's new, that's interesting, that I wanted to do for a long time. So I'm like, all right, I'm not really a big social media person myself, but I want to learn how to put something together that is what I've been seeing that gets my attention.
Yeah.
I want attention. And I thought I had some information I could share with people that would be really helpful. And I needed to figure out a way to do it, one, for that reason, and also just figure out how to work the algorithms or just to see if I can
Yeah.
figure out how to make this worth my investment in time. It did take money. I spent a couple of lessons learning from somebody who gave me some best practices. I tried a lot of stuff and it didn't work. I spent some money on some software. I bought some video equipment, some audio equipment, some lighting. I thought it was all great investment. I don't regret any of it. But So it led to the ability to make things easier, faster, to look better. It increased people's responsiveness to me, which positively reinforced my efforts.
Yeah.
So
We need it too.
it made a difference. So I got enough of a response to keep pushing and going, and then I just started to want to do this more. And I honestly, I was addicted to making videos and stuff. I started to love to do it, except for the tediousness of all the editing and so forth, which still drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I think I've slowed down a little bit. Obviously, the business comes back, and for several months, I just don't have time to post on there. And sometimes I need a break. I don't want to. I don't want to be asking for
It's
attention or trying.
exhausting.
It's
Yeah,
exhausting. It's
very
not
draining.
it's not a world I really wanted to. I'm not really into it myself. I don't communicate a lot on social media.
Yeah,
It is just to kind
same.
of find
I'm
what's
not
new
really a
out there. What
consumer of content, so
right? I
it's
don't do it the way
yeah.
most people do.
Yeah.
I've had to learn what people like to watch. Like, I definitely don't have this. Believe it or not, I don't watch as much dog stuff as a dog person would watch. I love dogs every second, and I'm always into it. But I have a lot of other interests, and I got to
Yeah.
figure out what people are watching. They're not watching 2 minute videos; they're watching 15-second videos, apparently,
Yeah.
which is really
The
hard to
truth.
squeeze out any instruction that's or anything useful that isn't just excited to where you're getting your attention or getting you to share it with somebody. It's I don't want the attention that way. I want to be somebody who can help people. So
Yeah.
the videos I put together, and it's pretty much just Instagram because I can only learn one platform at a time or deal with it.
Yep.
Is to try to show people what it looks like. You're saying to fix complex problems that we think are complex in ways that we might have thought of using behavioral psychology and working with what's in front of us and realizing that we don't have to be in control or in charge all the time, and that we give our dogs some grace and think about where they come from and what's causing these problems and trying to get to the root of it in a way that evokes some compassion for our pets and isn't too complicated. I found that I can make things really complicated with everything that I know walking to somebody's house or talking on the computer or phone. And so learning how to make it simple, slower has been a challenge for me. And
Yeah.
I think that's part of where I'm going is to try to make this bite-sized to where there's something you can grasp, something actionable. May not solve all your problems, but it's going to be something you can at least try. And I know a lot of my clients just need to try something new, and
Hmm.
half of them are going to be successful without any advanced training. Most dogs I work with aren't basket cases. They're not, if they're reactive, they're not the worst case scenario. If they're aggressive, they're probably being defensive. You can probably use management better and be more aware of antecedents, things that are
Yeah.
happening better. So I'm not trying to solve the most complex things in 90 seconds or a minute online. I'm trying to teach
Right.
people like what are the components of these things and what's that bigger picture and get this idea that they can buy into that isn't what they're seeing all over probably the more popular, well, not all of them, but some of the more engaging sites where it's just, I hate the showmanship of it's just performative and
It's the razzle dazzle.
it's
Hmm.
concerning also because a lot of it is emotional. It's scary. And there's a lot of stuff I disagree with that I see a lot out there. We don't have to go over all of it. I'm sure your listeners are aware of a lot of it and some of the bigger offenders that I'm just trying to carefully explain to people that without judging them, without pooing on their ideas or what they think they've learned. Believe it or not, before I did this, I'm over 15 years ago, I got into this industry because Cesar Millan wrote some books and was on TV. And I didn't know where I was going to be after that. I quickly learned this isn't where I want to go. It was a lot of show and talk, but as much as I can't stand where he's taken a lot of the viewership and the thought, it did get me started. So
Yeah.
I wanted a way to change that and take some of the mythology out of it and make it simpler, easier to digest for people. And so that's kind of
Yeah.
what
I
the show.
think it's working. Like I said, I think that the way that we work sounds pretty aligned. So what you're saying resonates with me. But if that's the case, then the algorithm delivered your content to the right
It,
person.
it did. I'm pleased to hear that. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I do every day. I just try to have, conversation with people to get in their world and try to help them problem solve.
Yeah. And I could nerd out all day about dog behavior 100 ways over, but I know our
Totally.
time is limited and I have a couple of questions for you. So my first question is about the personal dog or dogs that you have in your life right now.
Your viewers can't see it, but you can see behind me.
I can see
I
them.
have all of them right there behind me. My Labrador, who we had for 10 years, we lost a couple years ago suddenly. But currently, I have my Chihuahua up here, Bambi. This right here, this girl behind me is Chablis, named after it's a white wine. Most people don't know it unless you're over 40. But I wasn't going to call her Chardonnay. It just sounds silly. I happen to have another dog before that named Mozzarella, so she went fine with the cheese and wine combo.
Yeah.
She is
Yeah.
my favorite. She's sitting right next to me right now, always watching me, always waiting for something fun that I do.
Oh,
But all my dogs are all small. They're all old-ish. Don't want to say that in front of them, but 14 to 14-ish in that realm. A mixes and a Chihuahua, not young,
yeah.
but you wouldn't know it by meeting her. Every day of
Young
my
at
life,
heart.
I am grateful for these animals. I'm so close to them. And something that just been on my mind lately is you don't know how important your dogs are until after you've lost one.
Mm.
And I never lost a personal dog that I had raised, taken care of until Kismet, my Labrador. And granted, my dogs they're actually older than her. And then I'm like, every second matters, every look matters, every
Yeah.
chance I get to be in their lives matters so much more because I can really appreciate how fragile and how quickly things can change. I saw it
Yeah.
happen. So I'm real close to my group of dogs here.
They're a great little
And
group. Oh my
they're
goodness.
wonderful. I really have no complaints. They're the best dogs. I'm blessed to have some amazing animals. Chablis goes with me to work half the time to work with dogs that have reactivity issues. She's
Hmm.
somehow still able to meet the most daunting dogs and just ignores them. She's
Yeah.
pretty bomb proof in that regard. And she was a rescue at 6 months and she was full of nerves and we just stayed close and she's been the champion. She's
Yeah.
amazing as a dog.
Yeah.
She was actually she was on a TV show with us a few years ago, Discovery, an agility show called The Puppy Bowl Presents. She did pretty good against much younger agility-centered dogs.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, that's so
And so,
cool.
I think we ended up getting third. And believe it or not, she actually has a pretty significant mitral valve disease as well. That was concurrent with that time, and I didn't realize that was what's causing. I thought she was just stressed because of the situation during it, even though
Yeah.
she performed great. But she did all that with a pretty significant heart issue.
Oh my
So again, it
gosh.
just continues to
What
blow
a
me away.
champ, right?
What a champ! Yeah.
It's a great little group. On to story time. What
All right.
story did you bring to share with the dog people out there?
All right. So I thought about this for a while, and it's hard for me to come up with a big story, especially in a limited amount of time. So I've been on Instagram a decent amount lately and
You get more than
listening to
15
it.
seconds, though.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
get more than 15 seconds, so more than Instagram reel.
Exactly. I follow a couple of different people. I like to listen to people having conversations that are different, a little deeper, more thoughtful. And somebody that I've been listening to a lot lately is Denise Fenzi. I love her take on everything, and the more I listen to her, more it seems to align with how I look at things. And so I'm really attracted to her approach, and I'm really glad she's getting a lot of exposure recently. But something she said, the reason I bring it up, something she said was recently about positive reinforcement training and the bigger picture behind it and what it ends up doing for people who practice it. And I thought this is something that also aligned with me. And I messaged her today to thank her for this, but I have a domain that I purchased in nothing with called Dog Training is Life. And dog training is life to me essentially is that the idea, all the concepts of dog training behavior that I've learned over the last 15 years seem to have influenced how I go through life, seem to teach me about how other behaviors happen, consequences, strategies for changing them. And it gives me, because of the empathy and the thoughtfulness and allowing these dogs to have a choice and be themselves, that overarching feeling infects everything else that we do. So we hopefully become more empathetic in general. We are not so reactive ourselves, less
Hmm.
judgmental, more thoughtful. We listen. Those are the things I think I've learned from my experiences in dog training. And foremost, working towards the positive side, always trying to become a little bit more positive, knowing that I came from a kind of, as a new trainer, you don't know what to follow. And I was probably more balanced, even though I thought I was positive. And I knew I did have all the skills. But after 15 years, realizing we have time for this. And as long as we're making progress every day, we're doing fine. But I've learned that, like Denise was saying, when I see things in my way, when I see problems with people, when I look at problems in my own life, maybe that I take some of the skills I learned from how we change behavior and how we look at other problems and apply those. And so I think that's something I'd like to tell other people is that if you stick with it long enough and you really look into things, you're going to generalize what you're doing in your professional world into your personal world. And I hope it's more common than not for people. I think it takes time to really see that. You have to get into the more complex, I guess, psychology and behavior work. You get the whole picture. You start to understand, oh my goodness, this person's having a hard time. What happened right before this behavior happened, right?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
what's their endocrine system doing? How is the hormones in their body affecting them 5 minutes before this?
Yeah.
What's their life like? Where do they come from culturally? Where do they live environmentally? What's their job like? And those are the things I think about, because when I look at a dog, I'm like, goodness, what has he been doing all day?
Mhm.
What just happened before I walked in? Was he already keyed up? Was he playing? Did he see somebody else in the bark? Was this just making it worse? What can I do to diffuse the situation? Maybe I give a compliment to this person. Maybe I don't engage with this person as much as I want to. Maybe I just listen to this person and let them speak their piece and bark at me.
Yeah.
And maybe I just act differently than the last guy they saw, because the last guy was just typical. And maybe I just need to be a little bit different so I can earn their trust. Maybe I come back and expect change the next time. I don't give them any advice whatsoever if they tell me a story. It's not my place. And maybe the next visit or two, which is it's common in dog training. We don't change a lot every time the first visit, but there's been times where 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lessons down the road, the dog finally wants me to touch it. Finally
Yeah.
opens up to me, comes close to me, and believes there's a chance for a relationship. That kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff. If I'm really being honest, I'm hoping is what happens from thinking this way more and more.
I think that is such a tremendous transformation that can happen in anyone out there who's learning to love a complex dog or understand their dog in a new way. I
Mm-hmm.
think
It's
that
helped my relationship with my fiance. I just
that's
understand we're completely different people in a lot of ways and very similar in a lot, and that she has difficulties in some areas I don't, and I need to figure out how to best help her. So it's the patience that comes with it. It's the listening. It's being empathetic and knowing that somebody's struggling, and likewise, we learn to help each other that way. Because I'm no saint completely, and I have my own issues. Believe it or not, I get pretty frustrated really easily, which is something I always remember when I'm working with dogs, is how difficult just frustration is. I think that's actually my
frustration.
focus
Hmm.
this year, is to realize how that
Yes.
frustration is worse than so many
It's
other,
so
like
aversive to
it's
so
so
many
aversive.
dogs. Yeah, I fully
I'd
agree. I've
I'd rather be punched in the face with a positive punishment than forced to wait in line.
right. And some
Uh,
dogs are similar where frustration is going to be that derailing to the process. And I know people like that just have a very short
yeah,
fuse when it comes to that.
kind of. Yeah, I've been working on it for my whole life. So it's something that I think it's been helpful for me to see that in my learning and trying to avoid positive punishment, the big scary thing, and forgetting after
Yes,
this frustration, this using negative punishment can be just as bad for the future behavior and can condition feelings towards something
all
just
kinds
as
of
bad. And
feelings.
so we need to be aware of everything and be open to understanding and looking at the animal in front of us and trying something new when it's not working.
I just love how much self-awareness I think it took to, in your words, generalize that in that way. And I could see how, as somebody who tries to, in my work, practice compassion and curiosity, how it would be really difficult over time to be practicing that towards dogs and then to not then have that be how you're
Yeah.
practicing towards people.
It made total sense. And I wish I was better at it in every situation, but it's the times that I catch myself like, oh, what would you do here? You're telling a client, take a step back. If I'm rushed or hurried or late or hungry or thirsty or hot, then obviously those setting events or conditions
Mhm.
can influence my behavior. And so I just try to have a little bit of awareness of, oh, I reacted. Don't be mad at yourself. Take a
Yeah.
minute and breathe, step back and acknowledge there might have been a reason for it, but you can change. And so it's just little bits of practice, little bits here and there, and become more Zen like eventually.
And we aren't just helping dogs because dogs aren't
Goodness, no.
living in houses by themselves.
Right. Good
So we
point.
actually have to be changing human behavior if we want to change the dog's condition truly,
I love that.
and their experience.
I end up having sidebars and conversations with clients that really go more into what's going on with them. I'm trying to
Mhm.
explain the bigger picture. And I love the term that not everybody gets it, but the people that are really interested are like, oh my God, I didn't even thought of that. That makes
Mhm.
total sense. And it's just little things that they consider these more in the future. They're going to be more open to understanding their animal again. They won't have to
Yeah.
just react or,
And I think it's
yeah,
important to find the pieces of it that do make sense to translate over to a human, right?
Mhm.
Saying your dog's nervous system is dysregulated is probably accurate, but maybe doesn't mean as much as saying, have you ever been like really overstimulated at the airport and you're
Yeah.
like running things are
Yeah.
just
All
like,
that.
and you're right,
Trigger
ah,
stacking.
exactly,
How does trigger
exactly.
stacking work? I got a lot of
Hmm.
analogies from getting stuck in
Hmm.
traffic to like your boss yelling at you before you got in the car. And then you're hot, the air conditioning went out, and you got home, and your husband asks you what do you want for dinner, and you yell at him. I don't freaking know. And you're like, man, I was trying
Right.
to help you solve a problem because I don't want
Has
you to worry
nothing to
about
do with
dinner.
dinner, has nothing to do with the
You
husband.
could just
Yeah.
say pizza and like,
Yep.
but that's one of the little analogies I like to give. And analogies are fun for
Yeah.
me.
I think rest is another one that you
Mm,
mentioned earlier
totally.
that people can get,
Yeah.
people can understand, oh, I know what it's like to not get my sleep. I know how different I feel when I don't
Such a
get
big
good
one.
rest. Yeah. Yeah.
If I don't get my rest, and I'm big on my rest and making sure that I'm taken care of first. I'm pulling the oxygen mask on me
You
before I start to
have
help
to,
others. People are
too.
not always aligned with that, but I'm pushing it a lot. Just take a breather, help yourself, sit down. And there's days where I need to lay down on the couch for 10 to 15 minutes in the middle of a day because I just got too much I've been dealing with for so much. And I
Yeah.
can feel that if something happens that is a little averse, I might overreact,
Yep.
knowing how getting to know yourself. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to make this better by taking some more oxygen in. I'm going to close my eyes, reduce some sensory input, maybe do some stretching, loosen my body up, and then I'm more resilient. And I can go back to attack what's coming at.
Resiliency. That's something that I'm glad that you mentioned because I
Mhm.
noticed that's something in your profile about raising
Yeah.
resilient puppies. And I just think what we were talking about, because frustration has been one of my obsessions lately too,
Hmm.
in that sometimes we need to not put frustration in place. And there are things we can do to alleviate it. And sometimes we
Hmm.
can't because our world, our modern human world, is super restrictive for dogs all the time. So
Everybody has a
how do
front
we
door,
build front door and a leash and a
a leash.
window and
Yeah.
a this and a all of it? And it's just
Right.
modern society because I think that society matters. We need leashes, we need walls and doors and windows.
Yep.
But sometimes we can't alleviate the frustration. We can't get rid of those things. What we do
Hmm.
is we build the resilience. That's something that's really emerging, thank goodness. And I think it's
Thank
really
goodness.
important.
Yeah. I think getting ahead of problems is one of those things where you can build resilience before you have to encounter issues. It's more tedious, I think, than people mostly want to work with because it's always before problems to some extent.
Mhm.
You can work with it once you got problems, but it's always harder since you're extinguishing them. But it's not hard. It's just thoughtful. And a lot of things I start with are we're gonna work on just conditioning everything. That's first of all, let's not get there with the frustration. So if you're gonna put on a harness on your puppy, let's take time. My goodness, I'll do it in 3 or 4 steps if I have to over a couple of days because I know it's going to be the rest of your life thing. And I don't want that to be an issue. Or let's always start with a longer leash if we have the option so that your puppy's not trying to solve this complex problem. It gets more hard and complex with a shorter leash. That's
Mhm.
where can I move safely without being trapped? So if we take that out a little bit, it helps. But yeah, with resiliency, just keeping them moving and thinking and not dwelling on something too much can be helpful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other, we could definitely go a deep dive into that. And I
Yes.
would love to listen to some of your ideas on it as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
yeah.
think
I
just coping, teaching us how to cope.
Yeah, coping skills, and some of that is learning to deal with stress. Some of that is
Mhm.
building a little bit more tolerance to the stress so it doesn't bother you
Mhm.
quite as much. A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Exposures sometimes the things that are
Yeah.
just a little more challenging than you thought you could handle. And
Yeah.
then, believe it or not, that's where negative reinforcement can come in and actually benefit you. You don't have to stress your
Yeah.
animal out so much that it's going to cause any real emotional problems. But if they feel successful accomplishing something, that's better than positive reinforcement sometimes. The whole
Yeah.
scope of the transition from I don't know to yes is so much bigger, I think, than just going from, okay, that feels good.
A
You
thousand
get the whole,
percent.
you need to start with positive reinforcement, but then once they've got this game down,
They
I'm
can
not
compound
suggesting,
that too.
yeah, I'm not suggesting we lean on negative reinforcement for dealing with all our
No, you're
problems,
just saying that it's
but you,
present in these types of situations.
yeah, withholding food, withholding access, teaching longer focus, those kinds of things aren't easy. And once they get it and they do longer and better, they can feel so much, and then it becomes normal, and then we're resilient.
Hmm. Resilient and confident and all the things that
Confident.
makes it less likely to have stressful events have an impact.
Exactly. They last a lot. They just roll off your shoulder for the most part,
Mhm.
hopefully.
Yeah. Like a
Mhm.
time investment in that kind of training.
The heck else are you gonna do with the animal that you love so much? And you're gonna well, why do we give him such low credit? I watch people. I hate to compare to children, but we plan and prepare, and we know life's gonna be hard, and not everybody does the best, but I think if we just realize that dogs need us to the same extent, just real fast, mostly. Like
Mhm.
you don't have to parent for 20 years. You can get that over in two. You just
Yeah.
have to understand what that's going to look like a little bit better and be proactive and set things up and take time to teach. And I think that's a great recipe for a dog who does well with us forever.
Yeah, I totally agree. Is there anything else you'd like the listeners out there to know about you and what you do and how to work with you?
I think you covered a lot here. As far as working with me, I do work, in person locally here in Orange County, California, mostly in the Costa Mesa, Huntington, Irvine, Newport area here by the beach. But I also do a fair amount of work online. And for what I don't need to necessarily touch your dog, a lot of this is hands off.
Yeah.
I need to be able to see, like a lot of the coaches online, are just making sure that we have a good history, a lot of good information, and can see what we're working with so I can give advice on what to change. And a lot of stuff can change really quickly if we just stop doing some things that have not been helping, introduce some management, introduce some reinforcement for some other behaviors, and plus time. And I think we can get a lot done. If anybody's interested in working with me, feel free to reach out to me. You can message me on Instagram, although I'd say it's much easier to give me a call, shoot me an email, or shoot me a message on text. I actually am pretty available for people. I try to be more available to the public if I can be. And right on my website, you can schedule a 10-minute call with me pretty much as long as my schedule is open. And at OCK9coaching.com, there's a schedule here, and there's a 10-minute phone call you can schedule for free, 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm happy to go through what I can do to help you.
Perfect. As he said, you can find Bryndon on Instagram at OCK9 Coaching. That's CANINE. And on his website, www.ock9coaching.com, both of which will be linked in the show notes. Thanks for joining us in the world of Dog Training Bytes, where every challenge brings a lesson worth sinking our teeth into. See you next time. Dog Training Bytes was created, produced, and edited by Mattison Simpson. You can connect with me on Instagram at Dog Training Bytes, that's BYTES, and at Freed by Training. For information on today's guest and resources for help with your dog or dog training education, visit www.dogtrainingbytes.stream. Looking for more? Listen to my other show, Unpacked, a clinical dog training podcast co-hosted by Sailor Jerry the dog trainer and produced by Straight Up Dog Talk LLC.